Vincent Goodwill joining the program now. Vince, great to see you. What is going to be the Lakers' approach down the stretch here with Luka back in the fold and hanging up 30 pieces when he's healthy?
They've been very cautious with Luka to this point, but I do believe from what I've been told, they're going to unleash him for the stretch run of this NBA season because there's only so much time left, and on that hamstring, they've been pulling him back because he always wants to play. Now, you saw he played 38 minutes last night. He controlled the game down the stretch. The Lakers are one of the best closing teams in the NBA despite their point differential. And with LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves, they've only played 11 games together so far this season. With only a third of the season left, they're going to let Luka Doncic cook and see exactly how far they can go in the Western Conference.
The Lakers 16-3 in clutch time games this season, so they do know how to close out games, and it helps when you have Luka Doncic doing the closing out. Hey, let's stay in the Western Conference. The Warriors hanging on right now to that 8th seed. What is the latest that you're hearing on Steph Curry's return and him recovering from that lower body injury?
Well, with that right knee, the swelling that's happened with Stephen Curry has been a little unexpected. The Golden State Warriors are going to take a more cautious approach compared to the Lakers with Luka Doncic. You have to remember Steph Curry is going to be 38 years old in March, and the Warriors don't have a LeBron James that can carry the load for them. They already have injury issues as is. They want Steph Curry to be completely healthy in case they get into a first-round series. Remember what happened last year with that hamstring injury for him. They want to make sure he is completely healthy for the stretch run. They want to conserve the best of the rest of Stephen Curry.
They are 2 games over 500 right now. They are the 8th seed right now in the West, which means they are in the play-in tournament as it sits today. Vincent Goodwill joining us this morning on SportsCenter with the latest. Luka Doncic leads the league in scoring, just under 33 per. Kawhi just under 28 per. And Doncic getting things started. Missed that 4 games leading up to the All-Star break with that bum hamstring. But Luka, early goings of this game, catching more heat than Bauer Hockey on TikTok. If you're not familiar, just do a little Googling. All right, he had 17 points on 75% shooting from the field in the first quarter. We move to the second. Kawhi elevating. And it's honestly just awesome to see Kawhi getting buckets, leading his team. Unfortunately, he would be leaving this game before it ended in regulation. Corner triple, got it. Second quarter, Leonard had 19 points, 6 for 11 shooting. Clippers were down 7 at the break. Let's go straight out to the fourth quarter. We're tied at 101. Quiet night for LeBron. 13 points, 11 assists. Bit of a hockey assist here. Ball's eventually going to find Austin Reeves, 3 of his 29. Lakers up 3, 5 to go. We're tied at 109. Derrick Jones Jr. cookies. Here comes Luka the other way. He poked that away, and then Luka setting up the offense. A little give it back. Cash. 8 for 14 from distance for Luka. 112-109. And here's where I mentioned shortly into the highlight. Leonard, speaking with Coach Ty Lue, would head to the locker room, did not return. He left the game with a little ankle soreness. He left the game after 31 points. Luka, the composure, the balance in the paint. By the way, for Leonard, 15 games with 30 or more points this season. He only had 4 of those last year. LeBron on the inbound. The Clippers with a chance. They're down 3, 5 seconds to go. Nick Batum, no. LeBron squeezes the rebound. Clippers don't foul, so they run out the clock to the Lakers. I don't know what Ty Lue said. I don't want to repeat what he said because, well, you can only say things once on TV. Here's LeBron after the game.
Both teams shot really well, but was able to get a couple stops. Obviously Luka and AR was phenomenal offensively. Every second, every minute that we're on the floor together, it helps. Like I said, it was that All-Star weekend. We don't know what we're going to be until we get fully healthy, and tonight was one of the first games where JJ and the coach staff could look down and know everybody was available. So, we just got to keep pushing. We got to keep pushing. We got a tough team coming in on Sunday. Let's see, a lifetime NBA rivalry, so we got to be ready for them. They're playing great basketball, too.
Not for nothing, the Lakers are 16-3 this season in clutch time games. LeBron referring to the Celtics, who they'll see tomorrow, who took the first game between the rivals earlier in the season as well, behind 30 points from Jaylen Brown at TD Garden. Since LeBron joined the Lakers, the 7 meetings in the series in Los Angeles, they have been tight, separated by just 2 total points.
A lot more separating these two teams. Got the Timberwolves, got the Mavericks. You got Anthony Edwards, your All-Star game MVP, career highs, points per game, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. Cheering, huh? Why is he cheering? Because Naz Reid did that. Naz goes, it was crazy. Just making things electrifying for fans. That's how he described the dunk. as he hit him with the Illmatic. Nas is like, what? 21 points, 12th game this season with 20 or more off the bench. But 20 was only halfway home to what Anthony Edwards did last night. Took 13 threes, made 5 of them. Gave a lot of credit to his head coach, Chris Finch. He's been a big part of my success. Told me to work on getting to this spot and rising up over whoever it is. He's been preaching that to me. So 20 points in the first half for Ant-Man, and in the fourth, continuing to pour it on a Mavs team that's lost 9 straight. Meanwhile, Minnesota has won 8 of 11. Ant heading to his 27th career 40-point game. That's 14 more than any other player in T-Wolves history. Off the inbound, found the 3-point line, knocked it down, and even 40 points, better than 50% shooting. Here's Ant, and he knew.
I ain't gonna lie, I kind of do this in my sleep for real. I'm being honest with you. I woke up today and knew I was gonna get 40. I seen K go for
Tonight, for the first time on TV, very cool. Legs is going to be there for this game. So, Tim, let's talk about this expectation for the Knicks this season, that they would make a finals run, they make a coaching change, let's go all the way. Then they fall. What's the state of the Knicks right now?
Well, you're right, Hannah. Look, the expectations were finals, and I think the path was cleared a little bit with the injury to Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton going down. So coming into the season, you thought the 2 favorites in Eastern Conference were Cleveland and New York. You knew Detroit was going to be significantly better. Boston has been a surprise. So the Knicks still have all of those things on the table, but right now there's no question about it. What just happened with the Detroit Pistons and these 3 losses, 84 points. There's no doubt. For now, the Knicks are probably relieved they're done with the Pistons for the year. The good news is they're 4-1 against Boston and Cleveland. So the other 2 teams there at the top, they've done very well against. This has been a wild ride for the Knicks. And I think right now, they've got to show that their defense is going to be good enough when the time comes to be able to stand up to the Detroit Pistons. And you do that by taking on a very good Houston team and these other top teams that either come into your building or you get on the road. The tone has to change with what your defensive approach is going to be, because I think that's the weakness for the New York Knicks. That's where they can be attacked, and that is where they've had the hardest time against a team like the Pistons. So you've got to show that you can get back on your feet after getting knocked out the other night for the 3rd time by the Pistons. The Knicks have everything in front of them, but they have to dramatically tighten up their defense against these top teams.
Yeah, you just don't know what you're going to get. Even though they're 21-8 at home this season, let's talk about these Rockets, because they're a very good road team. And they have been playing this season without their point guard, Fred VanVleet. And we've seen KD coming off a monster game coming into this one. How is Houston getting it done offensively?
They're different than most teams in this league, Hannah, because they don't rely heavily on the 3-point shot. This is a team that's going to beat you from mid-range, in the paint, at the line, and then they're going to kill you on the glass. Like, their number one feature that this team brings every night is they dominate you on the glass. They get a lot of second-chance opportunities. Very efficient from their top guys. Kevin Durant, Amin Thompson, Alperen Sengun, all 3 of those guys elite in the efficiency in the middle area of the floor. 29th in the league at 3-point attempts. Like, you just don't see teams typically operate that way and be this good offensively, but that's how Houston gets it done. And it's going to be a big challenge for the Knicks, first and foremost, to control their own defensive backboard, because that is where Houston just absolutely hammers you. They get second chance opportunities to put the ball back in the hands of elite offensive players, and you have to play defense sometimes for 30 to 40 seconds at a stretch.
Yeah, it's been a while since the Rockets have won at the Garden, all the way back since 2019. All right, let's talk about these Lakers. They're half a game back of the Rockets. Last night was just the 11th game that we saw LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves all play. I do not want to make too big a deal of this, okay, because Kawhi Leonard was out for the final 5 minutes of the game, and the Lakers had their full complement of players, but they did get the win. Going forward, what sort of problems might this lineup, when the big 3 are healthy, present for opponents?
Well, this team is the one team in the NBA that you look at the top 3 guys on their roster and you say nobody can match what those 3 guys do in terms of offense creation. No one's got 3 guys on this level when you include Austin Reeves in there with Luka and LeBron. So that means for J.J. Redick, he's got the luxury throughout the game of staggering their minutes to ensure that most of the game, 90% of the game, you can have 2 of those guys on the court at all time, but certainly at no point are you going to have none of them. And I think that's what they bring to the table. And offensively, they can be elite as they were last night. Now, defensively, I think it's a below average team, but their offense can be so good on certain nights when all three guys play. If you're forcing the other team to take the ball to the net most of the night, it's going to improve your half-court defense. And I think that's what the Lakers are counting on. And they've only had 11 games, as you said, all year to see what that looks like. But when they've had it, it looks pretty dominant offensively. And that's what the Lakers are counting on.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, they're 8-3 this season in the games that LeBron, Luka, and Reeves all play. They need to stack up a lot more of those. Legs, we're looking forward to your call. Have fun tonight at the Garden. Thank you.
Game back for the Lakers after the break. First game back for Luka after missing the last 4 games ahead of the break because of a hamstring concern. After 38 points in 38 minutes and a Lakers win, I don't think the hamstring is a concern anymore. Luka Doncic leading the game in scoring. He leads the league in scoring, and he's also third in assists. And based off of that most recent 38-point game, which was last night, he leads the league in well-rested hamstrings. He got off his feet to sit down with ESPN's Omar Raja to go over some of his best highlights and proves doing dishes has different meaning when you're Luka Doncic.
Luka, step back 3 for the lead. He got it. Doncic throws down a sledgehammer. Spectacular stuff from Luka Doncic.
Luka, appreciate you joining the show, man. First clip against Denver, end of the game. What are you thinking here?
I was gonna shoot the 3, but then I saw like Plumlee goes out to me, and then I just drove it.
Now, when Millsap is coming up, are you hesitating at all? Are you like, let me go up? Or are you thinking of maybe dropping a pass? Or are you just at that point committed?
Yeah, at that point, I was just committed. It was young Luka right there.
Are you a better passer or scorer?
I would say passer, honestly.
What a pass, Washington. Oh, that was beautiful.
The pass over Wemby.
Oh, that's just, yeah.
You like that one?
Yeah. I like it. I just, like sometimes I just don't think, I just do stuff. But when you see Wemby down there, you know, it's obviously going to be hard for a layup.
Is there anything you're keeping in mind with Wemby just being so big?
Of course, that's what, I mean, I think if it's not Wemby, I will go off for layup. But since it's Wemby, it's kind of hard.
How do you practice this?
You don't. I think just feeling, you know.
Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! Bang! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer.
This is the one where it was just an iconic play. The moment you get the ball, what is everything you're thinking?
I mean, first of all, I see if they're going to double, but I saw nobody was coming. You know, normally this point in the game, I get the double team. So I just, you know, wanted to get my go-to move.
Yeah.
And I knew I was confident in that.
Everyone shoots step backs now, but it feels like you're the best in the league at step backs. So what makes the perfect step back?
You know, balancing, I think, is very important. The balance got to be good.
Yeah.
Especially going back. And then the amount of separation you make with the step back, you know, I just try to make it as long as possible.
I'm curious, do you have a favorite highlight? Because I remember this, I was at this game, media's not supposed to react. It was the first time in 10 years I've yelled.
I would say this was my favorite moment.
Doncic maneuvers for the lead. Got it! What a shot! Dallas has taken the lead!
You want Gobert to switch on to you, right? Is there something you saw during the game where you're like, this is the mismatch I'm having success with?
I mean, it's just like, you know, I like centers on me, especially if they're going to switch. You know, they have normally slower feet than the guards.
Right.
And I usually have the best defender on me. So I wanted that switch, you know, because centers are a little bit slower than guards.
In the early days of Luka, you were very smiley and just happy to be here. And then we got Luka now, who's maybe the best trash talker in the NBA. It's like you and Draymond. When did that change?
I don't trash talk right away. I wait to somebody to say something, you know, and then I go back. But this was a really big shot, so that's why.
So you're never
I was just excited.
So you're never the first one?
Not many times.
Got it. Are you hyping yourself up or are you talking to them usually?
I mean, if it's away game, especially, I'm probably talking to them because they're talking to me the whole game.
Luka, appreciate the time, man. Thank you so much. You got all the highlights in the world.
Thank you.
Yes.
ESPN NBA senior writer
Look, I'm going to be brutally honest with you right from the start, because if you've been following this Lakers franchise long enough to develop the kind of emotional scar tissue necessary to survive the daily psychological warfare that comes with supporting a team that treats every season like an elaborate social experiment designed to test the limits of human patience and cardiovascular health, then you already know that every single moment of genuine optimism gets immediately balanced by an equal and opposite moment of pure, unadulterated chaos that makes you question not just your basketball fandom, but your fundamental understanding of cause and effect in the universe. We're talking about an organization that has somehow managed to turn what should be the most straightforward equation in professional sports: acquire talented players, keep them healthy, coach them effectively, win basketball games, into something that resembles advanced quantum physics mixed with interpretive dance and a healthy dose of Murphy's Law applied with surgical precision to inflict maximum emotional damage on anyone foolish enough to invest their time, energy, and mental health in the outcome of 48-minute basketball games played by millionaires who sometimes seem genuinely surprised that basketball involves running up and down a wooden floor for extended periods of time. If you're reading this and thinking, finally, someone who understands that being a Lakers fan requires the emotional intelligence of a crisis counselor, the patience of a kindergarten teacher, and the pain tolerance of someone who voluntarily watches reality television, then go ahead and absolutely destroy that like button, because we're about to embark on a comprehensive journey through why this particular stretch of games might represent either the most significant turning point in recent franchise history or just another beautifully orchestrated false dawn in a season that's felt like watching someone try to perform brain surgery while riding a mechanical bull during an earthquake. But let me start with something that might actually qualify as legitimately good news for once, which is that after what feels like approximately 47 years of injury reports that read like casualty lists from a particularly brutal medieval siege, the Los Angeles Lakers have finally, miraculously, against all odds and in defiance of every natural law governing professional basketball, achieved something that seemed about as likely as discovering a unicorn grazing peacefully in your backyard next to a pot of gold, and a signed confession from the basketball gods admitting they've been deliberately messing with Lakers fans for entertainment purposes. A completely healthy roster where all the key pieces are available simultaneously and ready to play basketball at the same time without anyone needing to visit the trainer's room for mysterious ailments that sound like they were diagnosed by someone who learned medicine from watching episodes of Grey's Anatomy while blindfolded. The fact that we can actually say Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves are all cleared for action without anyone having an asterisk, a question mark, or a footnote next to their name feels like witnessing a legitimate miracle, especially when you consider that for most of this season, trying to field our three best players simultaneously has been more challenging than completing a PhD in theoretical astrophysics while juggling flaming torches and reciting the collected works of Shakespeare backwards in ancient Aramaic. Luka's hamstring issues had him sidelined for stretches that felt like geological epochs, during which Lakers fans developed entirely new coping mechanisms and probably aged in dog years, while Austin Reeves dealt with calf problems that kept him limited to bench duties, with minutes restrictions that made every appearance feel like watching a master chef being forced to prepare a gourmet meal using only a microwave and ingredients from a gas station convenience store. Even LeBron, who has spent the better part of 2 decades convincing everyone that he's somehow immune to the basic laws of human biology and physical deterioration, has been dealing with various knee and back issues that serve as gentle reminders that Father Time remains undefeated in his eternal battle against even the most genetically gifted athletes in human history. Though in LeBron's case, Father Time seems to be taking his sweet time and probably consulting multiple medical textbooks to figure out exactly how someone can play elite professional basketball at age 41 while still looking like they could probably suit up for a decathlon if they felt like it. This newfound health creates an absolutely fascinating dynamic where, for the first time since probably the second week of October, we can actually evaluate what this team looks like when everyone's available, instead of constantly playing the what if everyone was healthy game that's dominated Lakers discourse since the season started. And while I believe this represents our best opportunity to finally see what we actually have in terms of legitimate championship potential, the timing couldn't be more critical, with only 28 games remaining to build the chemistry, trust, and mutual understanding that championship teams need to execute under pressure when every possession matters, and margin for error shrinks to basically nothing. Speaking of execution under pressure and margin for error, let's talk about what happened when this fully healthy roster finally took the court against the Los Angeles Clippers in what turned out to be exactly the type of statement game that either validates all our carefully constructed optimism or brutally exposes the fundamental flaws that have been masked by injury excuses all season long. The Lakers absolutely incinerated the Clippers, 125-122, in a performance that showcased everything we've been desperately hoping to see from this group when everyone's engaged, healthy, and executing at their highest level, with offensive efficiency that was genuinely beautiful to watch and just enough defensive stops to get the job done when it mattered most. But here's what made this game particularly significant, beyond just the final score. This was the first time all season that we got to see the Lakers' intended starting lineup play together from the opening tip, creating chemistry and rhythm that had been impossible to develop during all those games when someone was always missing, limited, or playing through something that would have hospitalized a normal human being. Luka absolutely torched the Clippers for 38 points and 11 assists, while looking every bit like the transcendent talent we traded half our future to acquire, moving with the kind of fluid confidence that only comes when your body feels right and your teammates are making the shots that create the space necessary for individual brilliance to flourish within a team concept. Austin Reeves contributed 29 points while hitting shots from locations on the basketball court that seemed to defy both physics and common sense, reminding everyone why he became such a fan favorite in the first place and why his development into a legitimate third option represents one of the most important storylines in determining this team's championship ceiling. Even LeBron, despite clearly dealing with some knee discomfort that had him moving like someone's grandfather who refuses to admit he needs help carrying groceries, but somehow still manages to get the job done through pure stubborn determination and an understanding of basketball that borders on telepathic, contributed meaningfully to the victory with the kind of floor leadership and clutch decision-making that you simply cannot teach or replicate. The offensive execution was the kind of thing that makes you believe this group could genuinely compete with anyone in the league when everything clicks, hitting 52% from the field and an absolutely ridiculous 55% from three-point range while moving the ball with the kind of unselfishness and purpose that championship teams display during their best moments, though I'm thinking about it realistically and objectively. The defensive performance still leaves plenty of room for improvement if we're serious about making the kind of deep playoff run that would justify all the patience and suffering we've endured as fans. But here's where things get really interesting from a tactical and strategic perspective. Because J.J. Redick finally made the lineup change that Lakers fans have been screaming for since approximately the second game of the season, inserting Marcus Smart into the starting lineup and creating a defensive identity and toughness quotient that this team has been desperately lacking since the season began. The decision to start Smart alongside Luka, LeBron, Austin, and DeAndre Ayton represents the kind of tactical adjustment that either demonstrates genuine coaching insight and adaptability or exposes how embarrassingly long it should have taken to figure out something that seemed painfully obvious to anyone who's watched more than 3 Lakers games this year and possesses even a basic understanding of how basketball rotations should work in theory. Smart's presence in the starting 5 immediately paid dividends in ways that went far beyond simple statistics, providing the defensive intensity, communication, and leadership that transforms a collection of individually talented players into something resembling a cohesive basketball unit with shared goals and mutual accountability. The fact that this lineup exploded for 41 points in the first quarter, hitting 8 3-pointers and establishing a pace and energy level that had the crowd at Crypto.com, arena genuinely engaged for the first time in months, suggests that maybe, just maybe, prioritizing defense and toughness over pure size and shooting might actually be the formula this team needs to unlock its potential and become something greater than the sum of its parts. The energy and communication that Smart brings to both ends of the floor creates ripple effects throughout the entire roster, allowing other players to focus on their individual strengths rather than trying to compensate for deficiencies in areas where they're not naturally equipped to excel. And while I believe this lineup change could represent a genuine turning point for the season and potentially the franchise, the real test will be whether this group can maintain that level of intensity and execution over the remaining games when the stakes continue to escalate and teams start preparing specifically to counter whatever advantages this new configuration might provide. Smart's defensive versatility allows him to guard multiple positions effectively, which means J.J. Redick can switch defensive assignments without creating mismatches or forcing players into situations where they're fundamentally overmatched. And his leadership on the court provides the kind of vocal direction and emotional energy that championship teams require during crucial moments when composure and execution determine the difference between advancement and elimination. Now, here's the part that should simultaneously excite and absolutely terrify every Lakers fan with a functioning memory and any understanding of basketball mathematics. This trio of Luka, LeBron, and Austin has played exactly 10 games together this entire season, which means we've been making judgments about championship potential and roster fit based on a sample size that would make a statistics professor cry tears of academic frustration while questioning the fundamental nature of human logic and reasoning. 10 games out of 54 completed means we've spent most of the season operating in purely theoretical mode, constantly debating what this team might look like if everyone could stay healthy long enough to actually develop the chemistry and understanding that allows great individual players to become great teammates, and the fact that we're still just 1 game out of 3rd place in the Western Conference, despite this ridiculous injury. Luck suggests that our ceiling might be significantly higher than anyone currently realizes or is willing to admit. The remaining 28 games represent our first real opportunity to discover whether this group can develop the trust, communication, and mutual understanding necessary to execute at the highest level when games matter most, and defensive schemes become more sophisticated. And honestly, thinking about it objectively and without the emotional baggage that comes with years of Lakers disappointment, the timing couldn't be better, since this stretch run will provide the perfect laboratory for testing different combinations and approaches before the playoffs begin in earnest. But we need to be realistic about what chemistry actually means in basketball terms. Because it's not just about players liking each other or getting along off the court, but rather about understanding each other's tendencies, preferences, and instincts well enough to make split-second decisions that put teammates in position to succeed, rather than forcing them into situations where they're operating outside their comfort zones or natural skill sets. Luka needs to learn exactly how Austin prefers to receive passes in different offensive sets, while Austin needs to understand when Luka wants to control the pace versus when he's looking to push tempo, and LeBron needs to find the balance between asserting his veteran leadership and allowing younger players to develop their own chemistry and confidence within the system. These are the kinds of subtle adjustments and mutual adaptations that take time to develop and can't be rushed or forced through coaching or practice. Which is why having 28 games to work through these issues represents both an opportunity and a challenge that could determine whether this season ends in celebration or the familiar disappointment that has characterized too much of recent Lakers history. But let's address the elephant in the room that's wearing number 6 and moving like someone who's played more high-intensity basketball than any human being in recorded history. Because LeBron's performance against the Clippers revealed both his continued brilliance and the undeniable reality that Father Time remains undefeated in his eternal battle against even the greatest athletes in world history. Watching LeBron deal with knee soreness while still contributing meaningful basketball is both inspiring and deeply concerning, representing the kind of situation where we're simultaneously grateful for his presence and worried about how much longer we can reasonably expect him to perform at this level without his body finally demanding the rest and recovery it's been putting off for the past 24 years of professional basketball at the highest possible level. The knee issues aren't just about immediate discomfort or temporary limitations, but rather about the cumulative effect of decades spent absorbing contact, making explosive movements, and pushing his body beyond normal human limitations in pursuit of basketball excellence. And while LeBron's conditioning and commitment to physical maintenance have allowed him to defy conventional wisdom about athletic longevity, there are certain biological realities that even the most dedicated and genetically gifted athletes cannot indefinitely postpone. His movement patterns during the Clippers game showed subtle but noticeable changes in how he approaches certain defensive rotations and transition opportunities. Not because his basketball IQ has diminished or his understanding of the game has somehow regressed, but because his body requires different management strategies and recovery protocols than it did even 2 or 3 years ago. The contract situation adds another layer of complexity to everything. Because LeBron's decision about his future directly impacts every other move the organization makes. From roster construction, to coaching philosophy, to long-term strategic planning. And while nobody outside his inner circle knows what he's actually thinking about his future, the fact that he's continuing to play through discomfort at age 41 suggests someone who still believes this group has legitimate championship potential, despite all the challenges and setbacks we've faced throughout the season. I believe the organization's decision not to offer LeBron a massive contract extension demonstrates financial wisdom and strategic thinking, rather than disrespect or lack of appreciation, because building a sustainable championship roster requires maintaining salary cap flexibility rather than committing every available dollar to a player whose effectiveness, while still impressive and valuable, clearly operates within different parameters than it did during his peak years. The Lakers need to balance honoring LeBron's incredible contributions and ongoing value against the practical realities of roster construction in a league where championship teams require depth, versatility, and the ability to adapt to different matchups and strategic challenges, which means maintaining financial flexibility becomes crucial for acquiring the complementary pieces that could make the difference between championship success and first-round playoff elimination. Meanwhile, in the world of individual recognition that often matters more to media members and casual fans than actual basketball success or team accomplishment, Luka has apparently fallen to 5th place in MVP voting, which tells you everything you need to know about how narrative and team success influence these awards more than raw statistical production or individual brilliance on the basketball court. Cade Cunningham's rise in MVP consideration perfectly illustrates how voters prioritize storylines about young players elevating their teams and exceeding expectations over the messy reality of established stars dealing with inconsistent roster health and organizational dysfunction. And while there's certainly logic to rewarding players who maximize their team's potential within challenging circumstances, it's genuinely frustrating to watch Luka's incredible individual season get diminished because our front office spent years constructing rosters held together with duct tape, prayer, and optimism. The MVP voting situation serves as a stark reminder that individual awards often reflect team success and media narratives more than pure individual excellence or statistical dominance. Meaning that if this Lakers team can somehow climb to 3rd or 4th place in the Western Conference standings over the final stretch, suddenly Luka's candidacy becomes much more compelling to voters who prioritize winning and team improvement above everything else. Though I'm thinking about it realistically and objectively, the damage to his narrative might already be too significant to overcome this late in the season. What makes this particularly frustrating is that Luka's individual numbers, the points, rebounds, assists, shooting efficiency, clutch performance, and overall impact, compare favorably to anyone in the league, but the context of team success and injury management has created a narrative that undermines his candidacy in ways that feel fundamentally unfair to anyone who's actually watched him play basketball on a nightly basis. The voting patterns reveal how much these awards depend on factors beyond individual control, from teammate health to organizational competence to media coverage and public perception, which means that truly exceptional individual seasons can get overlooked or undervalued because they occur within situations that don't fit neat narrative categories or provide the kind of feel-good storylines that voters prefer when making these decisions. Speaking of building for the future rather than just surviving the present moment, the Lakers' recent signing of Kobe Buffkin to a 2-year contract represents exactly the type of organizational thinking and strategic planning that successful franchises employ when they identify talent before it becomes obvious to everyone else in the league and the competition for that talent becomes prohibitively expensive. Buffkin's absolute dominance in the G League, averaging over 26 points per game while shooting better than 50% from the field, and an absolutely ridiculous 43% from three-point range, demonstrates the kind of two-way impact that could solve several roster construction problems simultaneously, providing scoring, playmaking, and defensive versatility in a package that fits perfectly with the timeline of building around Luka, rather than just maximizing LeBron's remaining productive years. But what makes Bufkin particularly intriguing, beyond just his statistical production, is the way he's adapted his game to different situations and matchups, showing the kind of basketball IQ and adaptability that suggests he can contribute meaningfully at the NBA level, rather than just dominating inferior competition in the developmental league. His shooting mechanics are fundamentally sound, which means the three-point percentage should translate reasonably well to NBA competition, and his ability to create shots for both himself and teammates provides the kind of offensive flexibility that championship teams need from their role players during crucial playoff moments when primary options might be facing intense defensive pressure or dealing with foul trouble. The decision to prioritize internal development over chasing buyout market additions shows organizational maturity and patience. Betting on a player whose upside remains largely untapped, rather than settling for short-term solutions that might provide immediate help but no long-term value or development potential. And honestly, I believe this approach represents the kind of strategic thinking that separates great franchises from organizations that constantly react to immediate problems without considering future implications or sustainable success. But the G League success also needs to be viewed in proper context, because dominating that level of competition doesn't automatically translate to NBA effectiveness. And the Lakers will need to manage expectations while providing Bufkin with opportunities to develop his game against increasingly difficult competition. His defensive potential might be even more important than his offensive contributions, because the Lakers need players who can guard multiple positions effectively and provide the kind of energy and effort that championship teams require from every player in their rotation, regardless of their role or minutes allocation. But the buyout market still presents genuinely interesting opportunities for adding depth, experience, and specific skill sets, particularly when you consider players like Johnny Juzang, who possess exactly the combination of size, athleticism, basketball IQ, and professional experience that championship teams need from their role players during deep playoff runs when every possession matters and margin for error disappears entirely. Juzang's UCLA pedigree and NBA experience, combined with his defensive versatility and three-point shooting ability, represent the kind of low-risk, high-reward addition that could provide valuable depth without requiring significant financial investment or roster disruption. Though the question becomes whether the Lakers want to prioritize immediate help or continue betting on internal development through players like Adu Thiero and Chris Magnon. What makes Juzang particularly appealing is his college success in high pressure situations, having led UCLA to the Final Four with clutch performances that demonstrated the kind of mental toughness and competitive spirit that translates well to playoff basketball. And his NBA experience, while limited, showed flashes of the two-way impact that role players need to provide in order to contribute meaningfully to championship teams. His shooting ability from three-point range addresses one of the Lakers' most consistent needs, providing spacing and offensive threat that allows primary creators like Luka and LeBron to operate with better driving lanes and more efficient offensive sets. While his defensive versatility gives coaches flexibility in matchup situations and allows for switching schemes that can disrupt opposing offensive flow, the buyout market conversation reveals an interesting philosophical divide between maximizing short-term success and building sustainable, long-term excellence. And while there's certainly a compelling argument for adding proven veterans who understand playoff basketball and can contribute immediately, there's also significant value in maintaining roster flexibility and continuing to develop young players who might become crucial pieces during future championship runs. Thinking about it strategically and objectively, the Lakers' approach to the buyout market should probably depend on how this newly healthy roster performs over the next 10 to 15 games. Because if this group demonstrates genuine championship potential and chemistry, then adding complementary pieces makes perfect sense. But if the fundamental issues persist despite improved health, then focusing on development and future flexibility becomes the wiser, long-term choice. The timing also matters significantly because players who become available later in the buyout process might be more desperate for opportunities and willing to accept reduced roles, while early buyout candidates might have more leverage and options that allow them to be more selective about their destinations. And that brings us to the most intriguing and potentially franchise-altering possibility on the horizon, which is the potential pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo this summer, representing the kind of seismic organizational move that could either establish the Lakers as legitimate championship favorites for the next decade or consume all their future flexibility while creating roster construction nightmares that take years to resolve and might ultimately prove counterproductive. The reporting suggests that the Lakers view themselves as genuine contenders for Giannis's services, which makes perfect sense when you consider the market appeal of Los Angeles, the championship platform and winning culture that this organization provides, and the absolutely tantalizing potential for building something special around the combination of Giannis and Luka for the next 8 to 10 years. But acquiring Giannis would require trading 3 first-round picks plus additional assets and salary matching to Milwaukee, which raises genuinely important questions about whether mortgaging the future for one player, regardless of how transcendently talented he might be, represents sound organizational strategy, or just another example of the Lakers prioritizing star power over sustainable roster construction and long-term competitive balance. The competition for Giannis's services would obviously include franchises like Miami, Golden State, and potentially Minnesota, all of whom can offer compelling basketball situations, organizational stability, and championship potential, meaning the Lakers would need to present not just an attractive trade package, but also a convincing vision for how Giannis fits into their long-term championship plans and organizational culture. Miami brings Pat Riley's proven track record of maximizing superstar talent and creating championship teams, along with a culture of professionalism and accountability that appeals to elite players, while Golden State offers the proven championship infrastructure and coaching excellence that has produced multiple titles over the past decade. Minnesota could present an interesting dark horse option with their young talent and financial flexibility, though their lack of championship experience and organizational track record might work against them in a competitive bidding situation. But what makes the Lakers particularly compelling is the combination of Luka's prime years, the Los Angeles market advantages, and the organizational resources necessary to build championship-caliber rosters around multiple superstars, assuming they can learn from past mistakes and avoid the roster construction errors that have plagued recent seasons. I believe the Giannis possibility represents exactly the type of calculated risk that great franchises take when generational talent becomes available, because the combination of Giannis and Luka would immediately establish the Lakers as championship contenders while providing a foundation for sustained excellence that could define the next era of franchise history though the execution would need to be absolutely perfect to justify the enormous investment required to make such a move happen. The logistics of such a trade would require careful salary cap management and creative roster construction to ensure that adding Giannis doesn't create new problems or limitations that undermine the overall team-building process, and the Lakers would need to maintain enough depth and complementary talent to avoid the mistakes that have plagued other superstar-heavy rosters in recent years. The timeline also works in the Lakers' favor, because Giannis is entering his prime years while Luka is still developing into his peak effectiveness, meaning they could potentially dominate together for 6 to 8 years if the roster construction and organizational management meet the standards required for sustained championship success. Looking at everything we've discussed comprehensively, from the immediate health improvements to the tactical adjustments to the individual development stories to the long-term roster possibilities, it becomes absolutely clear that this stretch of games represents far more than just another regular season push toward playoff positioning, but rather a genuine inflection point that will determine whether this Lakers team evolves into something genuinely special or remains forever trapped in the purgatory of unrealized potential and wasted opportunities that has defined far too much of the past decade. The pieces are finally in place for this organization to discover what it actually has in terms of championship potential, and while there are still plenty of questions that need answers and challenges that need solutions, the combination of talent, health, organizational direction, and strategic flexibility suggests that Lakers fans might finally have legitimate reason for optimism rather than the desperate hope that has sustained us through so many disappointing seasons and false starts. Whether that optimism proves justified or just represents another chapter in the ongoing saga of Lakers basketball remains to be seen. But for the first time in quite a while, the evidence suggests that this franchise might actually be building something sustainable and championship-worthy, rather than just trying to survive until the next crisis emerges. And honestly, after everything we've endured as fans, that possibility alone feels worth celebrating, even if we maintain the healthy skepticism that comes from years of experience watching this organization find creative ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.